I had already made peace with dying. That is what my people do. The Velhari do not cry. We have no tears to give. We do not beg, because begging requires believing that someone might listen, and no one had listened to us in 300 years. So we look up. We find a star through whatever small window is nearby. We fix its light in our memory, and then we let go of everything else. I was on my knees on the cold metal floor of Dominion Station Vira. My wrists were locked behind my back. My sentence had been read aloud 3 minutes ago into the station's official log, in the flat, bored tone of someone recording a routine entry. Around me, 4 soldiers stood in their positions. The officer behind me was preparing his equipment. Everything was in order. Everything was proceeding exactly as the Dominion intended. Through the single viewport above the platform, I could see stars. I picked one, a blue-white one, slightly left of center, burning quietly at an impossible distance. I fixed it in my memory. I began to let go. My crime had been a simple one. A worker from the velhari caste had collapsed outside my quarters 2 months ago. He was sick. I had medical knowledge and medical supplies. The Dominion's laws were very clear that I was not supposed to use either on a velhari, because the velhari were a designated underclass, and helping them was defined across 17 legal documents as behavior that threatened the social order. The punishment for threatening the social order was what was happening to me right now. I helped him anyway. His name was Tuan. He had 3 daughters. He told me their names while I worked, quietly, the way someone speaks when they are not used to being spoken to with kindness. He made it home to them. I was not going to make it anywhere. The equipment behind me began to charge. I heard it, a rising hum, steady and mechanical. I kept my eyes on the star. I kept letting go. Then every alarm on the station screamed at once. At first I thought something had simply broken. This station was old and poorly maintained, and things broke on it regularly. But I had lived on Vira for 2 years, and I knew the difference between a malfunction alarm and a breach alarm. A breach alarm meant something had struck the hull. Something had come through it. The officer behind me stopped what he was doing. I watched the soldiers from the corner of my eye. What I saw on their faces was something I had never seen on Dominion soldiers before, in all my years under their authority. I had seen discipline. I had seen contempt. I had seen the practiced blankness of beings who have done difficult things so many times that the difficulty no longer registers. What I saw now was fear. Not the careful alertness of trained fighters, not the controlled tension of soldiers preparing for a threat they believed they could handle. This was different. This was older. This was the fear of beings who have encountered something they do not have a strategy for, and they know it, and the knowledge is moving through them faster than they can manage. One word came through the communication channel above my head. The soldiers used their military shorthand, which was encoded and fast, but I had spent 2 years learning it, because information was the only freedom the Dominion had not found a way to take from me. The word was, humans. The soldiers ran. The officer ran. Within 40 seconds, I was alone on the execution platform, still on my knees, still locked in my restraints, with the charging equipment behind me, making an increasingly unstable sound as it continued to cycle, with no one directing it. I looked back at my star. I had heard of humans the way you hear about things that might not be real, in fragments, in whispers, in the careful voices of people who were not sure whether saying the word too loudly might somehow summon the thing itself. A species from a single small planet, short-lived, physically unremarkable, no armor, no natural weapons, no biological advantages worth recording in the Dominion's extensive xenobiology files. They had appeared on the Dominion's edge roughly 40 years ago, and the Dominion had approached them the way it approached everyone, with a demonstration of power and a list of terms. The humans had read the terms. Then they had said no. The Dominion did not accept no. What followed was 40 years of a conflict that the Dominion's own analysts could not properly name, because it did not behave like any war they had studied. The humans lost more than they won. They lost ships and stations and soldiers and entire fleets that the Dominion surrounded and dismantled piece by piece. And then they came back. Every single time, they came back. The Dominion's models would calculate that human resistance had fallen below the point of meaningful threat, and then something would happen that the models had not predicted, and the resistance would continue. I had read 3 of the Dominion's official reports on the subject. I remember one phrase clearly. It called human behavior a pathological inability to accept a final outcome. Standing in that empty deck with their soldiers running past me through the corridors, I began to think the Dominion's analysts had perhaps understated the situation. The smoke came before he did. It carried the sharp smell of breached metal, and something else beneath it, something warm that I could not identify. Then the figure stepped through it, and I saw a human being for the first time in my life. He was not large, he was roughly my height, maybe slightly shorter, built without the kind of physical presence that usually signals danger. He wore a vest with many pockets, plain trousers, and boots that had been repaired in at least 2 places with different materials. There was a tool on his belt and a weapon beside it, but the weapon was holstered and both his hands were open at his sides. He looked around the deck, assessed the charging equipment with a quick glance, and then his eyes moved to me. He walked across the deck and crouched down so that his eyes were level with mine. They were brown. I noticed this because I had not expected the color. Brown, the color of soil, of wood, of warm and patient things. He looked at my face. He looked at my restraints. He looked at the equipment still cycling behind me. Then he whispered something that rearranged every assumption I had built about how the universe worked. He said, "Come with me. I've got you." I did not move. Something in me had simply stopped. Not from fear. The Velhari are not a people who freeze from fear. But something deeper had encountered a thing it had no way to process, and it was working very hard and very quickly to find the correct response. And until it found one, I remained still. I said, carefully, "Why?" He was already reaching for my restraints, pulling a cutting tool from his belt. He paused when I spoke. "Why what?" he said. His grammar was accented but clear. "Why would you?" I searched for the right construction. "I am a stranger. I am not your species. I am a condemned prisoner on a Dominion execution platform. You are risking." He glanced at the equipment behind me, then back at me. "Yeah, we should probably talk while I work," he resumed cutting. "You didn't answer," I said. "Because you looked like you needed help," he said. He said it the way you say something obvious, not dismissively. He wasn't being careless with the words. He said it with the full weight of a person who believes what they are saying completely, and who has not spent any time recently questioning whether it is true, because to him it simply is. The way the stars are, the way gravity is, the way the universe operates. I processed this for what felt like a long time. "That is not," I said slowly, "a logically complete motivation." "Sure it is," he said. The restraints fell away. He stood and offered me his hand. I knew enough about human gesture to understand this meant help rising, and I took it, because my legs had been locked in one position for a long time, and it was efficient. "Can you run?" he said. "Yes," I said. "Good," he said, and he was already moving. "Because I'm much better at running than fighting, and I would really like to not have to fight our way out." We ran. He was slower than me. The Velhari are built for endurance across difficult surfaces, and the human's physical design, while similar to mine in general shape, moved differently. Shorter steps, different balance. He was slower, and I noticed it, and something made me not mind, because both times I found myself waiting for him, he was not resting. The first time, he was pulling a young Grethali worker out from behind a collapsed storage unit. Someone he had apparently found on his way in, collected quietly, brought along, as though gathering stranded people was simply part of his route. The second time, he was sealing a security door to block 2 soldiers who had decided not to run after all. It was during the second wait that I noticed his sleeve. The left one was dark with blood. He had been injured at some point, before I had seen him, or during the time since, and he had not said anything about it, and he showed no sign of slowing down. "You are hurt," I said. "A little," he agreed, without looking at me. "You should have mentioned, ship first," he said. "Medical after. That's the order." I had no reply. The order he described was correct tactically. What I had not expected was that he was capable of maintaining it, that a being who was bleeding could also be navigating a hostile station, managing 2 non-human strangers, and making clear-eyed decisions about sealed doors, all at the same time, without complaint. We ran. He never stopped. I want to be very precise about this, because I think it matters more than anything else I observed. He never stopped. When a ceiling section failed and blocked our path, he changed direction without hesitation. When the young Grethali, whose name I later learned was Synth, hurt his ankle and could not move quickly. The human adjusted without discussion and helped carry the weight. When we came around a corner and found a patrol that had not fled and raised their weapons and ordered us to halt, something moved across his face. Not fear, not hesitation, something more like a very calm decision, and he changed direction again, and we kept moving. His ship was small, old, repaired with materials from at least 3 different manufacturing traditions that I could identify, and possibly more that I could not. It looked like something that had been told it was finished many times and had declined to accept the assessment. He loved it. I could see this immediately in how he moved aboard it, quickly, precisely, without having to look twice at anything. The ease of someone who has spent years in a space and knows every corner of it, the way they know their own hands. We left. The departure was not graceful. The station had begun a tractor lock, and the ship complained loudly about breaking it. But break it we did, and then we were in open space, and then the old jump drive made a sound like something being argued into agreement, and we were gone. In the quiet that followed, he treated his own arm with a medical kit from under the pilot's seat. He worked quickly and without drama. I watched him do it. "The Dominion fears your species," I said. "I have never understood why. You are not, physically, exceptional." He made a short sound that I understood after a moment, was laughter. Not the social kind, but the small involuntary kind that comes when something is genuinely and unexpectedly funny. "We hear that a lot," he said. "I am not insulting you," I said. "I am trying to understand. They're soldiers, beings who have conquered 40 species. They ran from one word. I have read the reports their analysts wrote about humans. They cannot predict your behavior. They cannot model it. Why?" He was quiet for a moment. The kind of quiet that means thinking. "I think," he said slowly, "it's because we don't do the math the way they do. The Dominion looks at every situation and calculates, is this worth the risk? Is this person worth saving? Does the chance of success justify the cost? And we do that too, sometimes. But at a certain point, the math just stops mattering. The math stops mattering." I repeated. "There was a person on that platform," he said. "She needed help. That was the whole equation. You could have died," I said. "Yeah," he said. He did not say this with distress or with false bravery. He said it with the calm of someone who has already considered a thing fully and made their decision about it, and does not need to revisit the decision. "Would have been worth it, though." I looked at him for a long time. "I am a stranger," I said. "You did not know my name. You did not know what I had done, or who I was, or whether I deserved." "That's the part that doesn't come into it," he said, and his voice was gentle, the way a voice is gentle when it is explaining something the speaker considers very simple and very true. "Deserving has nothing to do with it. You were a person. You were in trouble. That's enough. That's always enough." I sat with those words in the hum of the old ship, crossing the dark between the life I had ended and whatever was coming next. After a while, something happened to my face that I could not stop and could not explain. A pressure behind my eyes, a tightening across my chest, a warmth that moved through me without my permission. I did not know what it was. The velhari have no word for it, because we have never needed one. We say goodbye to the stars and we let go. We do not have language for the feeling of something coming back to you after you have already released it. He noticed. He reached into his vest pocket and slid a small cloth across the table between us, without saying anything, in the quiet way of someone who has done this before for other people and considers it a perfectly ordinary thing to prepare for. I wept. And in the middle of weeping, surrounded by the sounds of a repaired and stubborn little ship, I finally understood what the Dominion could not put into their reports. It was not human weapons that frightened them. It was not human numbers, or strategy, or technology. It was this. A man who bled quietly and kept running. A cloth slid across a table without ceremony. 6 words whispered through smoke to a stranger, with no name and no value by any calculation that mattered to the most powerful empire in the sector. "Come with me. I've got you." I had looked at a star and let go of everything, and a human had simply decided, without asking permission from logic or law or the mathematics of survival, that I was not allowed to. "Tack! Tack!"